What if I told you that most gamers are sitting on valuable skills, but they lose opportunities because they simply don't know how to explain them? Not because they are not capable, not because they are not good enough, but because they say things like,
"I just play games."
And that one sentence hides years of training. Because that is what gaming really is when done consistently. Training, problem solving, communication, leadership, adaptability, discipline. But employers don't understand gaming. They understand skills. And if you don't translate what you've learned into something they recognize, they will never see your value. I made that mistake as well. For a long time, I kept gaming completely separate from my professional life. I thought it had no place there. Now I see something very different. Gaming didn't hold me back. I just didn't know how to present it. And I want to ask you something early. Have you ever downplayed something you were actually good at, just because you thought people wouldn't take it seriously? I did. Why gamers hide their experience instead of using it? Most of us grew up hearing the same thing. Gaming is a waste. Gaming is a distraction. Gaming is not real. So when it comes time to build a CV, apply for jobs, go to interviews, we remove gaming completely. We act like it never existed. We focus only on what sounds acceptable. School, degrees, basic experience, and everything else stays hidden. That was me as well. Years of playing MMORPGs like Lineage 2 and World of Warcraft, leading groups, organizing raids, managing people, solving problems under pressure, communicating with strangers from different countries, adapting constantly. But none of that made it into how I presented myself, because I didn't think it mattered, or worse, I thought it would make me look bad. So I stayed quiet about it. But here is what I understand now. The problem was never gaming. The problem was translation. I had the experience. I just didn't have the language for it. Employers don't care about games, they care about skills. At some point, something clicked for me. Employers don't care if you played Lineage 2. They don't care if you raided in World of Warcraft. They don't care how many hours you have. They care about this. Can you communicate? Can you solve problems? Can you work with people? Can you learn fast? Can you stay consistent? Can you handle pressure? That's it. And suddenly, everything made sense, because I realized I already had proof of those things. I had lived them, just in a different environment. Gaming was never the problem. Not understanding how to translate it was the problem. That's when everything started to shift in how I saw myself. I thought differently after that. How to translate gaming into resume language that employers understand. Adaptability, the fast learner. Turn "I play many games" into a strength. Saying "I play many games" means nothing to an employer. But what it actually represents, it's powerful. You are constantly learning new systems, new mechanics, new rules, new environments. You are not afraid to start from zero. So instead of saying "I play different games," you translate it into quick to adapt to a new system and learn unfamiliar tools efficiently. That is something employers understand. That is something they want. And that is something you likely already are. I became that. Communication, team collaboration, from voice chat to real conversation. In games, especially online ones, communication is everything. You explain, you listen, you adjust, you deal with different personalities, you solve misunderstandings, you keep people focused. Now imagine saying this in a CV. I used to talk on Discord while playing. Sounds weak, right? But the real version is strong communication and team coordination skills developed through collaborative environments. Same experience, but different language. One gets ignored, the other gets respect. That shift matters. Leadership, team management, from guild leader to real responsibility. If you ever led a guild, a clan, a group, even a small one, you already know this is not easy. You deal with people quitting, conflicts, scheduling, motivation, responsibility. Now imagine saying, "I was a guild leader." Some people will not understand that. But if you say, "led and coordinated teams to achieve shared objectives under dynamic conditions," that sounds completely different. because now you are speaking their language and the experience becomes real in their eyes. That realization changed everything for me. Problem solving, analytical thinking, from boss mechanics to real challenges. Games constantly force you to think, why did this fail? What can I change? What is the better approach? How do I optimize this? That is analytical thinking. That is problem solving. Instead of saying, I figured things out in games, you say strong problem solving mindset with focus on efficient and practical solutions. Same skill, but different presentation. One is invisible and the other is valuable. Repetition, discipline and consistency, the most underrated skill. Gamers understand something many people struggle with. Repetition, grinding, improvement over time, delayed reward. You do not expect instant results. You build towards them. That is discipline. That is consistency. That is reliability. And instead of saying, I play a lot, you translate it into highly consistent and disciplined approach to long-term goals and performance improvement. That is powerful because employers trust consistency more than talent, more than potential. Consistency wins. Pressure management, calm under stress, the hidden advantage. Some of the most intense gaming moments train something very specific. Staying functional under pressure. Not perfect, not emotionless, but capable. And in real life, that matters a lot. Instead of saying, I handle intense situations in games, you say, able to stay focused and make decisions effectively under pressure. That is a real-world asset. That is something employers actively look for. And many gamers already have it. They just never say it. How you can actually use this in your CV and interview? Well, you don't write professional gamer. You don't list random game titles. You don't try to force it unnaturally. Instead, you do this. You identify the traits you built. You connect them to real situations. You express them in clear, simple language. And then, in interviews, if the moment fits, you can even explain where those skills came from, confidently, without shame, without trying to hide it. Because you now understand the value behind it. For me, this changed how I spoke, how I presented myself, how I understood my own journey. And that confidence translates more than people think. Why most gamers undersell themselves without realizing it? Most gamers don't lack skills. They lack translation. They lack confidence in those skills. They lack the ability to connect their experience to real-world value. And because of that, they undersell themselves. They hide. They simplify. They reduce years of growth into, I just play games. And that is one of the biggest mistakes you can make, because you are removing value from your own story. Gaming didn't make you weaker. It trained you in ways you might not fully see it yet. And once you start seeing it, you start presenting yourself differently. And people start seeing you differently as well. Turn your gaming experience into real-life advantage. So here is what I want you to take from this. Do not put gaming on your CV just for the sake of it. But do not ignore what it built in you either. Take the skills, translate them, own them, use them, because something powerful happens when you do. You stop feeling like you need to hide a part of yourself, and you start realizing that your own journey, even the parts people didn't understand, had value all along. That realization matters. I know it did for me. If you had to take one skill from gaming and put it on your CV today, what would it be? That is the one I would really like to hear. Thanks for watching.